Good afternoon, and thank you for joining our presentation. My name is Brittany Nelson of InnovateMR, and today we will be discussing ways to optimize your B2B research and provide an overview of best practices related to survey design, sample quality, and red herring research. This session has been pre-recorded. However, should you have a question during the presentation, please submit these via the Q&A feature, and our presenters will follow up with you after the presentation has concluded. Today's presenters represent some of the leading thought leaders and B2B experts in the market research industry. You're in for a treat. Joining us are Lisa Wilding Brown, Chief Research Officer of InnovateMR, John Voda, Senior Market Research and Analysis Manager from AT&T, and Hilary DeCamp, Chief Research Officer at the LRW Group. For now, I'll pass things over to Lisa to walk us through today's agenda. Lisa?
Thanks, Brittany. John, Hilary, and I are thrilled to be partnering today on a very important topic in our space. It's been so fun collaborating as a team, and we are really grateful to have the opportunity to share our expertise. Our goal is to provide a holistic and comprehensive view of the B2B landscape and to truly elevate B2B research quality in our industry. We believe our trio is well positioned for this goal, given that John represents the brand perspective, Hilary represents a full service market research firm, and I'll share what I've learned over the years as a sample provider. John will kick off our discussion by helping us to frame up the conversation and share his perspectives on why quality is important and uncover what is at risk. Next, I'll be giving you a front row seat to some of the unsavory behaviors and threats that exist online. And then Hilary will walk us through the various considerations and best practices around sourcing and survey design. Next up, I'll be discussing how red herring design can be leveraged to improve quality, as well as review the various technological strategies that can be employed to provide a truly layered approach and highlight how InnovateMR is leveraging algorithmic solutions through natural language processing to improve quality. And from there, we'll wrap up on our conclusions. John, can you go ahead and get us started?
I'd be delighted. Whether you conduct research for B2C or B2B, or perhaps both, the methods used and the importance of getting high quality data are relatively similar. Some of the key differences between B2C versus B2B research are the number of respondents surveyed. Typically, B2C has many more, and the ability to verify respondent-provided business information against publicly available sources. Business respondents generally cost much more than consumers because there are fewer of them to recruit from, they are more difficult to find, qualify, and verify, and they require a larger incentive, especially for those in senior positions or with unique expertise. Since business studies tend to have fewer respondents, just a few bad apples can have a greater impact on the overall quality of the research. While it seems obvious that you need to ensure each respondent is legitimate, not everyone realizes the importance of identity verification. One of the first times that I got burned by fraudulent business respondents was about 20 years ago when I was conducting medical marketing research. Perhaps I was naive, but it never occurred to me that anyone would pretend to be a specialty doctor just for the generous incentive. But a doctor's son learned about our study and shared the link with his friends, and a number of high school students completed a survey about a complex medical topic that could have had life and death consequences had we not found and eliminated their answers. That experience taught me the importance of ensuring every respondent is a quality respondent, and to never just assume that respondents are who they claim to be. Always verify. If you've never been impacted by poor respondent quality, either you are brilliant and already follow all the best practices we're about to discuss, or you are extremely lucky, or you have been impacted by poor quality respondents, but you didn't know it. And that's even worse because you can't fix what you don't realize is broken. Paying an incentive to non-qualified respondents is annoying and wasteful. but the incentive cost is likely the least damaging impact to your business. Wrong insights from unqualified respondents will result in bad business decisions, which can have long-term consequences. For the research vendors, poor quality respondents might result in lost projects or clients or long-term damage to your firm's reputation. And for research clients, the impact could also be devastating. If a new product launch fails and investors lose confidence in your firm's marketing abilities. Assuming you are lucky enough to identify the unqualified respondents, it will take extra time and money to replace them. And you may need to refield a study, which can create new data quality issues. For example, if the market factors have changed since the study was originally fielded. And if you cannot replace the poor quality respondents, you may need to weight the data, which can impact survey results, especially when extreme weights are used. Lisa can put an exact dollar amount on the cost of cyber fraud.
I sure can, John. The internet is a messy place, and the stat you are seeing here reflects this fact. According to Cybersecurity Ventures, a trusted source for cybersecurity statistics, cyber fraud is projected to cost the global economy $6 trillion in damages by 2021. So let that sink in. The key takeaway here is that no one is impervious. Cyber fraud poses a very real and material threat to companies large and small. We see this widely publicized on the news on almost a daily basis, and this threat is especially true when a monetary incentive is offered, which makes the market research space a direct target for cyber criminals. While B2B research is the primary target due to higher incentives, consumer research is not exempt from these attacks either. While these studies offer much lower incentives, cyber criminals strike these studies too, as the incentives add up quickly when a highly scaled effort is made. The key is to recognize the elephant in the room and acknowledge that these threats exist. No one company can fix this or ever truly solve for it, but you can be proactive and layer in various protections throughout the project lifecycle to position your research for success. Now, let's get into what threats exist to B2B sample quality. There are various permutations that really exist across this quality spectrum. Bots or programmatic scripts are leveraged by cyber criminals to auto-populate data into surveys. When bots first came on the market research scene, their data patterns were blatant, and these cases often completed surveys in a very short period of time. Fast forward many years later, AI-enabled bots have become very sophisticated, and these scripts are trained to provide unique data and are much more challenging to discover. Next up, there are collaborative networks, also known as click farms. Fraudsters know that many companies are using technology to capture a unique device fingerprint, and as such, these human networks are completing surveys from unique devices and bypassing this quality check. Digital hijacking has been leveraged by some of the more sophisticated cyber criminals. This can take shape when you unknowingly download a file that gives these users the virtual keys to your device. This provides these bad actors access to your computer where they pirate your identity. You serve as the host while they take actions from a centralized computer. This is also known as parasitic fraud. Moving further along on the spectrum, you have real humans. However, they're in it for the wrong reasons. They can be dishonest, and they treat survey taking like a job. They're highly motivated by incentives and often demonstrate overzealous behaviors and over-endorsement in their responses. And lastly, you can have duplication, brought about by using multiple vendors, since it's possible that a participant may belong to more than one panel or sample source. Today's attendees may have seen this clip in a presentation I gave at a conference a couple years ago, but I'm sharing it again here as I think it paints a very powerful picture of the level of effort that cyber criminals go through to circumvent our security. This video represents a mobile click farm that was uncovered by authorities in China, where thousands of mobile devices had been set up on grids. Authorities also seized thousands of SIM cards, which help these devices look truly unique, all while being programmed to generate well-scripted behaviors with the goal of earning money. Pretty scary stuff. But don't worry, we aren't just going to talk about the problems threatening our industry. Next, we'll review what you can do to better protect yourself against these threats. I'll hand it back over to John, who will walk us through some key questions to ask your sample provider as sourcing has a major part to play.
Thanks, Lisa. Now that you appreciate the importance of high-quality respondents and the cat and mouse battle that we're fighting against cyber fraudsters, here are 6 questions you should ask any sample provider you're considering to reduce your odds of getting burned. How is the panel recruited and vetted? Can anyone opt in, or must they be invited? And is everyone checked to ensure they really are who they claim to be? And what information is collected about them? Does the sample provider capture the industry, the number of employees, the revenue, the location? And more importantly, do they check any of it? Is the incentive sent immediately or after the data is checked? And how does it vary by survey length and respondent qualifications? Is it cash or is it a credits or a point account? What steps does the provider take to identify and eliminate poor quality respondents? Do they act proactively or only after problems are identified or clients complain? And have they successfully provided quality sample for studies with similar B2B audiences? Talk to a prior client if possible. And finally, has the provider gone the extra mile and become Microsoft certified? It demonstrates a commitment to quality. Next, Hilary will review additional sample considerations.
Thanks, John. Those are crucial questions to ask your sample provider, but our sampling advice doesn't stop there. It's critical to focus on a quality-first approach. We often feel pressure to use low-cost options due to budget constraints, but it's imperative to ask questions around sourcing and understand the various security and methodology layers that are in place. We saw from Lisa's landscape review that there are different types of substandard behaviors, so it's important to remember that a multi-layered approach will help you avoid pitfalls. From our experience, sourcing B2B professionals from websites and publishers that specialize in this audience mitigates the risk of false positives, finding regular consumers who claim to be the professionals you're looking for. Make sure your sample provider engages in profiling exercises to validate and properly classify participants for targeting. Build a strategic sample plan by first understanding the universe you want to represent and then determining the sample targets you'll need to reach this audience. While demographics of the decision maker are still interesting in B2B research, your recruit should focus on the firmographics that describe the organizations they work within. For example, if you want C-suite executives, but not small business owners or sole proprietors, you should target firmographics like minimum revenue and number of employees, not just titles with chief in them. And since many clients use different definitions for things like small businesses, you should work with your sample provider to clarify what your own expectations are so that nothing gets lost in translation. And a lot can get lost in translation, especially when doing international research. Job titles and organizational structures vary greatly across different markets. It's important to do your homework so that your survey properly reflects these differences. Lastly, we've seen a substantial increase in mobile penetration rates in recent years, and business professionals are among those who rely on their mobile devices most. It's imperative to design your survey for mobile participants and stay mindful of interview length to ensure an optimal experience for everyone. With professionals, often time really is money, so keep it brief or risk missing the people you most want to hear from. Given they can answer on their preferred device, will they answer? That depends on the respondent experience. Minimize the amount of cognitive and physical effort required to answer the questions, especially in the beginning before they're fully committed. And ask as few screening criteria as necessary to reach respondents. B2B sample pools are far more limited than consumer ones, so you may not be able to get a statistically reliable sample if you layer in too many nice-to-have criteria within an online survey that would have been perfectly reasonable for a qual recruit where you only needed to find a few people. That said, do make sure they're qualified. Titles rarely align consistently to job responsibilities, so ask about the behaviors or decisions you're seeking to influence. Don't assume the sample list has them accurately classified by industry, role, or even in current employer. Trust but verify. Use the same types of tests you would use in consumer research to catch fraudulent or inattentive respondents, but know you're likely to catch many more bad apples since the incentives here are higher. Lisa will discuss some variations that are especially useful for B2B a little bit later. With thorough cleaning of the B2B sample, you can generally expect to remove between 5 and 30% of completes. This is a bit higher than you find in most consumer work, reflecting the higher fraud rate motivated by B2B studies having higher incentives coupled with lower incidences. In this meta-analysis of a dataset Lisa provided containing many sample providers from many studies and clients, 14% was the typical B2B cleanout rate. But researchers vary on the types and extensiveness of the cleaning they do, so the same unclean dataset delivered to different end users would yield different ending sample sizes. And the quality of the data is also dependent upon the sources used to obtain the sample. One provider in this study had 84% of their completes on a particular project invalidated by the analyst. Can you believe it? But even modest levels of cleaning reflect enough low-quality data to impact your findings if you don't remove it. So be sure to build extensive cleaning into your cost and timing plans. Good quality comes with a cost, but as John noted earlier, bad quality can cost even much more. In addition to the error or bias introduced by fraudulent or inattentive respondents being left in your data set, excessive loss of good quality respondents due to survey attrition can undermine the representativeness of your sample and thereby your results, increasing your costs and even putting the feasibility of achieving a projectable and reliable sample size at risk. Some people think that high incentives are enough to excuse lengthy surveys. To some extent that's true, as people who knowingly sign up for a lengthy survey will tend to stick with it. In B2B, length-driven attrition doesn't appear to spike until you hit the 30-minute mark. But while average and maximum breakup rates are highest in surveys longer than 30 minutes, poor study design can drive high breakoffs in shorter surveys too. So carefully proof each survey to find and eliminate problematic questions. Next, Lisa will go into more detail on methods of keeping how bad respondents or bots out of your B2B survey.
Thanks, Hilary. Throughout the years, I've reviewed thousands of my clients' surveys, and I observed several different approaches to red herring design. From a B2C perspective, there are 3 primary question types. First up, basic instructions. An example of that would be something like, please select the color yellow from the list below. Then you have general knowledge questions. An example there would be, what color is the sky? And then next up, you have formula-based or a math challenge type question. And a good example there would be, please select the correct calculations below. It should be noted that these examples are pretty easy, and a well-designed bot can easily bypass these question formats. Just think about your smartphone. Siri is a bot, and she can handle complex requests and questions. Like I said before, bots have become increasingly sophisticated, so our methods must also exhibit more complexity to catch these bad actors. When it comes to B2B research, we recommend using industry knowledge items to test domain expertise of participants. This will really help you to determine if a respondent is properly qualified to participate in your study. We've identified 3 primary question formats for this type of red herring question. First one up, definitions. This takes shape by presenting several definitions for a given term or concept that is specific to the business professional you're targeting. You can include the correct definition along with incorrect definitions to see if the respondent truly understands the concept or term you're asking about. So a good example here would be something like, please select the definition that most closely explains how blockchain works. Including fake brands or low incidence behaviors are also a great way to test domain knowledge. A good example here would be, which business platforms are you most familiar with? From there, you would include real brands as well as fake brands. And if the respondent selects the fake brands, you know you have someone that is not worthy of your survey. Comparing unaided awareness to aided awareness is also a great way to test expertise. For example, if you're looking for cloud computing experts, first ask them to list out the tools they use via an open-ended question, and then compare these responses to an aided awareness question that is captured later in the survey. As it relates to design, we just learned that testing for domain expertise versus a general approach will produce the best results. But do keep placement in mind. Placing complex red herrings at minute 30 will produce poor results. We also recommend rotating a battery of trap questions versus relying on a singular question. It is important to change your blueprint for success. Cyber criminals are highly unpredictable, and they change their tactics frequently. You need to be just as unpredictable as they are. Do not rely on a singular trap question, but rather leverage a scoring system which looks at respondent behavior across the entire survey instrument. Quality is not a binary scenario of good versus bad. There is a lot of nuance, and as such, your assessment should take this into account. Again, ensure that you exercise fairness. If you create fake brands, do a quick Google search to ensure you haven't accidentally included a real obscure brand that would lead to confusion. Be mindful of what you're asking participants to do and avoid generating fatigue that could burn out good participants. And lastly, remember, there are various permutations that exist, and as such, having a solid strategy before field is critical. Here's a quick example of some research we conducted on red herring design. Here you can see that a very basic trap question does not provide a material impact when it comes to invalidation. This simple question only invalidated 1.4% of respondents. And again, we have observed bots answering these types of questions with ease. Next up is an example of a more optimal red herring question. Here you can see when asked about business platforms, nearly 22% of the participants were invalidated by selecting fake brands included in the list. This slide demonstrates the layered approach to quality that we employ here at InnovateMR. I was not kidding when I said a layered approach is best. Quality must be approached across the entire life cycle of a participant, from recruitment to registration, as well as pre and post survey. We certainly don't have time to review all these strategies, but it's important to highlight that we leverage different tactics for different use cases observed in our testing. The key here is to never assume that what people self-report is accurate or true. You must expose respondents to various checks, re-verify and revalidate throughout their lifetime in the panel. Quality does not exist at a singular point of time. Look for suspicious patterns throughout the entire respondent life cycle and take action quickly by quarantining them from survey activity. Now I'll pass it back over to John to review what should be done within the survey to mitigate your risk. John?
Thanks. Lisa covered the various checks that a sample provider should employ, but there are checks and strategies that you should implement directly within your survey. Don't leave it up to others to handle the quality on your behalf. Ensuring quality requires a partnership between you and your vendors, and you should work closely with these companies to have an open and transparent dialogue about the tactics employed before, during, and after the survey. It may seem redundant to leverage items such as digital fingerprinting and hidden reCAPTCHA within the survey instrument, but not all sample providers leverage these technologies. It is dangerous to assume that incoming participants have been appropriately vetted. So be proactive. Integrate these strategies within your surveys to provide the greatest levels of protection. So include a geo-IP check at the front door of the survey and ensure that each participant has a unique ID and the entry link is fully encrypted and password protected. Public URLs, in contrast, leave you open to fraudulent activity because the link can be widely shared online, and it will be, making you vulnerable to bad actors. Always employ a multi-layered approach to help identify poor quality. This can be achieved through carefully crafted red herrings that focus on domain expertise and well-placed consistency checks. Technology has made most quality checks fast and easy with little or no additional effort by the respondent. You should also develop a cleaning protocol and exercise against this SOP throughout fielding. A check for straight lining, speeding, and over-endorsement, and review open-end responses during fielding to avoid excessive cleaning post-field. The key is to be proactive and implement a scoring system to help assess quality. Lisa will now tell you how NLP is applied.
Thanks, John. Such great advice. You know, just under 2 years ago, our team at InnovateMR decided that text response evaluation could better serve us in identifying poor quality respondents. Using natural language processing, we designed a product called the Text Analyzer to help us and our clients evaluate open-end responses in real time. According to SAS, natural language processing, better known as NLP, is a branch of artificial intelligence that helps computers understand, interpret, and manipulate human language. NLP draws from many disciplines, including computer science and computational linguistics, in its pursuit to fill the gap between human communication and computer understanding. The text analyzer is available in 3 ways. InnovateMR includes this tool in our registration path and panel ecosystem, but clients can also integrate this technology directly into their survey environment or platform via API. Clients can also use the tool on a more ad hoc basis via our batch uploader, where customers can upload verbatim files to flag poor quality responses. The tool checks for gibberish, copy pasting, profanity, duplication, personally identifiable information, as well as adverse effects, and it measures for context. The context feature is super cool. It measures if the response submitted by the participant is contextual to the question itself, which draws from an extensive library of questions that are randomly presented at the user level, again, making the blueprint for success dynamic and unpredictable. The tool is programmed to validate responses in English, Spanish, German, and French, with more languages to be added in the near future. In terms of features, the tool offers a dashboard for full transparency and control. The tool also allows the ability for clients to create custom settings, since there are cases where a client may want to increase or decrease settings based on study needs or quality tolerance levels. Additionally, the tool allows our clients to upload custom brand lists that may be unknown to the tool's dictionary and therefore would be otherwise flagged. From time to time, respondents may accidentally include PII or report an adverse effect, as is the case in pharmaceutical research. The text analyzer is programmed to flag these cases to ensure this important information is either expunged and/or reported. InnovateMR recently completed a study where we evaluated 3,000 open-end responses in May of 2020. We've anonymized the other sample providers here for this test, but you can see that the percentage invalidated varies across providers, with InnovateMR's sample flagged at just 8%. Looking back to 2019 through 2020, we observed a 24% flag rate across the client sample files uploaded into our dashboard, which definitely reinforces that open ends can be problematic. Yet the tool is helping our clients evaluate these verbatims quickly across many sample suppliers in a matter of minutes, versus what could otherwise be a very manual and very error-prone process. Well, thank you all for tuning in today. We hope you found this presentation insightful and that you're leaving with some great learnings to help elevate your B2B research. We've covered a lot in a really short period of time, but the key takeaways here are that quality matters and the stakes are incredibly high. Cyberfraud is a very real and material issue, and no one company is impervious from these threats. The key is to understand your sample provider's sourcing strategies and ask questions to get a better understanding. Work proactively and implement several layers to mitigate risk. In terms of red herring design, testing for domain expertise and unaided brand awareness are great tactics to set you up for success. But keep in mind, design and placement are important, and rotating different questions will help you stay ahead and change the blueprint for success. Natural language processing is a great way to get a deeper understanding of open-ended responses, and we're excited by the positive impact it's having for our clients. Now I'll turn it back over to Brittany to wrap us up here.
Thanks, Lisa, John, and Hilary. We have just a few questions that we would like to cover before we wrap up today's session. The first one is for you, Hilary. Do you find that clients recognize the importance of data quality, or do they just go with the low-cost option?
Well, clients who are buying on price rarely call LRW, but I can say that we've won several large trackers in the last couple of years where clients were explicitly looking for higher quality data than they were getting from their previous vendor. Since the cost of improved quality processes and side-by-side testing tend to make the transition come with a hefty price tag, I'd say at least some clients are well aware of how important sample quality is. Unfortunately for them, it's often the result of having been personally burned on a project that's important to their business.
Yep, thanks, Hilary. The next question is going to go over to you, John. As it relates to survey design, what do you think is the most effective strategy in validating business professionals?
I guess when I'm thinking about a new partner, transparency is critical. What processes do they have in place to verify respondents? as we've been talking about, it is so important to have a partner that you can trust, that you don't have to worry about, that you know will do what's right and what's going to result in good results. Trying to save money by using some fly-by-night sample provider misses a big picture, because bad data results in bad decisions. So I would much rather have 10 respondents that I know are legitimate respondents than get 1,000 completed surveys from people that may or may not be legitimate. So a lot of times, researchers that maybe don't know better think if they get just more respondents, 1,000 respondents, that the numbers alone will ensure that they get good results. But it doesn't. All you get is more bad results, more bad data. So the only way to get better insights is by getting better people and valid respondents.
Thank you, John. And thanks again to Lisa and Hilary on a super insightful presentation. Should our attendees have further questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to Lisa directly. Her email is lisa@innovatemr.com. We will be sure to provide responses to all the great questions submitted today. In the meantime, have a great day ahead, and thanks for attending.